So now Donald Trump is responding to Joe Biden giving an interview to the New York Times where he dismissed the use of the Autopen. So listen to what Donald Trump said.
You're talking about the Autopen. Look, the Autopen, I think, is maybe one of the biggest scandals that we've had in 50 to 100 years. I guarantee you he knew nothing about what he was signing. I guarantee it. You know what the Autopen is supposed to do? Sign thousands of letters from young people that write. We get thousands of letters a week, Susie, right? Thousands. I mean, tens of thousands sometimes. I look at a room, there's a room where we have many, many people working, responding and sending letters back. That's what an Autopen's supposed to be. To write to a young 7-year-old boy that writes to the president and he wants to be president someday and he loves America. That's what the Autopen's supposed to be.
Now, keep in mind, with the Autopen, he reduced the sentences of convicts, 4,000 plus, including 1,500 individuals. 1,500 individuals. It was described as the largest single-day act of clemency by a U.S. president. And in this 10-minute interview, Joe Biden admits, I told them the criteria for the people that I would pardon, didn't necessarily mention the name or sign off on all of them individually. Zeitz and Siskel both did this. So we don't still know after that 10-minute interview about what went on with the pardons.
So back in July of 2023, Rand Paul referred Dr. Fauci to the DOJ for lying under oath, said that Fauci's own email contradicted his sworn testimony. This was his sworn testimony before he was pardoned.
The NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Do they fund Dr. Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain-of-function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain-of-function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina.
So, Lawrence, the question is, who pardoned him? Was it Joe Biden? Right. Was it some staffer that made the decision with the Autopen? And that's why Rand Paul is referring Dr. Fauci again, re-referring him to the DOJ.
This is what they're saying right here. The New York Times reports Fauci was quietly pardoned by an Autopen operated by Biden's staff. If the president didn't authorize this pardon personally, then the department has a duty to investigate and prosecute as it would any ordinary citizen. Fauci has been sainted by the extreme left, but it doesn't erase his lying before Congress. And you clearly see he lied before Congress.
Well, I would add this, that Jeff Zeitz was the COVID czar before he became chief of staff for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So he's the one signing off on this criteria. I just thought it was very interesting in that story. I'm reading the story. Can we get of Joe Biden's 10-minute interview with the New York Times? And it talks about why he's out there and saying, I was in charge of my administration. Why is he doing that? Because Jill Biden's chief of staff, Anthony Burnell, is going to testify this week because last week his doctor took the fifth rather than say whether he was cognitively all there during the time. That's why. But in the article, you would think you'd have a Republican comment on the use of the Autopen. A historian say, historically, since the Reagan days when the Autopen became prevalent, this is really not the way it's done. Or it is the way it's done. Instead, you'd have, here's his interview. Here's what they said. Thanks for coming. If a Republican was doing that, there is no way that the Donald Trump Autopen use would ever not be analyzed.
Well, not to mention, Ainsley, I forgot the staffer's name, but she was interviewed. She worked in the Obama staff, and she didn't plead the fifth, but she kept saying during the interview, I don't recall. They asked her, did you ever have to wake the president?
She said, I'm sorry, his assistant.
Right, exactly. There was no, she kept saying, I don't recall this at all. I don't recall it as well. I'm like, how do you not recall if you have to wake the president of the United States?
James Comer said the whole basis of his investigation and Congress's investigation is that Biden admitted that he didn't know exactly who was getting pardoned. That's a problem. And Donald Trump says this is a tremendous scandal.
Yeah, they went to town on an invisible president who gave a rough outline of the type of person that he would pardon, including his son.
It's insane.
Well, only the president has the executive ability to do that. And when you find out that other people were making those decisions, if that's the case, then that is a problem.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.